So I've just watched the Cleopatra Netflix show and I saw that there was some controversy about it. Outside of the controversy, I feel there should be many other things about this show that should be getting spoken about. Being billed as a docudrama series, I hadn't watched the trailer or anything like that, but I was expecting it to be something like how the Dharma series was done, as that was billed as a biographical drama, so I thought it would be slightly similar. But this was certainly not like that. Instead, it contained what felt like extremely subpar acting, a budget that must not have been that well spent, and a story being told by a few different people when it could have just been told by one. So with that, I thought I'd break down and explain why I feel this show was one of the worst things that I've watched in a while. So let's get into it. Here is why the Cleopatra Netflix show is awful. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. I'm not somebody who enjoys just providing a negative spin on a show. So right at the end of the video, I will mention a few things that I thought the show did an okay job at, as there were a couple of things that weren't too bad. But let's start with the first thing that I feel really did let the show down: the acting. This was one of the biggest things that made this show extremely uncomfortable to watch at times. I don't know whether it was the direction that the cast were given on set, or if it was their acting ability, but a lot of the performances in this show felt extremely poor to watch. Whether that be in the lines of the dialogue that they were delivering, or if it was the facial expressions that they had to exhibit when they were reacting to something that was occurring in a scene, it almost made me cringe a little bit when watching. I know it sounds bad to say, but it did feel extremely amateur at points, and almost like there was a lot of overacting. Normally, when you're watching a documentary, there's the odd cutscene where there's no dialogue, and you're watching something unfold to support the narration. On those occasions, then that's not too bad, even if it does seem a bit overacted. But this was being billed as a half drama and half documentary, and I just found it so hard to get into because of the way that the scenes were unfolding in front of me. I feel this should have almost just been a documentary where somebody was telling the history of Cleopatra, and then it could have been supported with the odd scene that would be used to support what was being said, just like how we see a normal documentary. I think that would have worked so much better. I've also seen some of the actors on shows in the UK before, and the shows that they're in are not necessarily renowned for their acting ability, or seen as shows that bring in the best performers. I would say though that the best performer that was within this show was Adele James, the individual who played Cleopatra. I feel there were ounces of overacting embedded within it, which does make me think that it could have been the direction that they were given on set, but most of the time I thought she gave a solid, convincing performance. Especially considering that she had to deliver the most emotional range and had a lot more to do than everybody else. The way a character is portrayed and delivered across the screen is such an important factor in a show, and the fact that it felt as though most of these characters were delivered in a melodramatic way where a lot of the lines felt like they were almost being read from a script didn't allow me to feel part of the world that was created, and I think the ancient time that the show most probably wanted to transport us back to, which is a shame, because you need that for a show like this. So yeah, the acting was pretty bad. Now let's move on to another thing that I feel made the show quite poor in terms of viewing experience. This was the budget and how cheap it felt. I tried searching for what the budget was for this show and I couldn't find anything out there, but I don't think it takes a lot to realize that there wasn't a lot of money that was put behind it. With scenes that were so clearly taken from something else, maybe even some kind of stock footage, the incorporation of close-up shots to mask the fact that there weren't certain things occurring, and also the set and the outfits that the cast members were wearing. It looked more like dress-up than believable, authentic uniforms and outfits that people would have worn all the way back then. Just like the actors and the delivery of the performance, everything is extremely important when it comes to creating this world and trying to make it feel real to the viewer when watching. But instead, it looked like a low-budget attempt. I think with us seeing actual award-winning TV series and movies that have been inspired by ancient times, medieval times, and other periods of time in history, we've seen how it can be done really well and feel believable, and almost be transported to a completely different environment. But this was an example of how it can be the complete opposite to how you've come to expect it to be done, which isn't good. I think it would have been told better if it was just a straight documentary, or if they invested time and money into it and did it like how they did the Dharma show. Instead, it felt like they went half in with the drama and half in with the documentary, which I think just made the whole show feel like a half attempt, and it made the pacing feel a bit weird at times. I think it's best to just pick one or the other. That's my opinion anyway. So what was good about the show? One thing that I did think was okay about the show was the conciseness of the story that was being relayed to us. 4 episodes of around 40 minutes is an extremely digestible amount of time, and something you're able to put on, get engrossed in, and depart feeling like you've learned something. I would say that the storytelling by the people that were being interviewed was pretty good. Personally, it felt as though we only needed these 2 individuals relaying the history to us. I thought they relayed the information the best out of all of them, and having 5 individuals was a bit too much, as they didn't each bring something different to the table when it came to the telling of the history. I didn't know much about Cleopatra before entering the show, and I feel I left the series knowing a lot more about her than when I started, and actually thinking that she was a pretty cool historical figure. So it did do something right, as I imagine that's the intention of the show. It's just a shame that the way that this show was executed, it didn't complement the history and the story completely. As you can see, there weren't that many good things about the show, and it's a shame, because I'd have definitely been down to watching the story of Cleopatra being told. After all, like I said earlier, the storytelling was actually one of the better things. There's some interesting history with Cleopatra, but it's just a shame that the delivery of it wasn't that great in this show. This felt like something that your teacher would just stick on in class and make you watch. That's the level of this show, so there's nothing that impressive about it. With this installment being part of a wider series, I do wonder if they will continue to do more episodes and add to the queens that they're exploring. I'd definitely be down for watching them. But if their stories are told in a different way and a bit more time is spent on fleshing out the drama arm, then I think it would make a drastic improvement. Like I said, if it just focused on the drama, it would have probably been a lot better. Who wouldn't want to see an ancient Egyptian high-budget drama with solid writing and acting relaying the history of Cleopatra? That's what could have been. I guess we'll just have to see what happens if and when a new episode gets released. So I personally wouldn't recommend watching this show. The acting is pretty bad, the writing of the drama is pretty bad, the world that's created is pretty bad, and the outfits are also pretty bad. So overall, it's just a pretty bad show. So, there you have it, why the Cleopatra Netflix show is awful. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this show? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.